This is audio 2 in the series on finance and money. In this topic, we're going to be covering the mindset of money and really what you need to understand and know about money in order to be successful. Okay. Is everybody ready? Mm-hmm. Okay, everybody got their sheets filled out? Okay, so the big thing that we want to cover tonight, when we talk about mindset, of course, it can be looked at as a boring topic, yes. and repetitive and that kind of stuff. But the reality is, most of us, we think we have one mindset, but we actually have a completely different mindset, and so the reason I had you guys fill this out first is so that we can go back, and when you're done, you can evaluate where your mindset was when you actually wrote this. You know what I mean? Hopefully you'll see some of the things a little bit different by the time that we're done. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So real quickly though, so we can make sure that this is actually going in the right direction, with what everybody was here, everybody that was here last week when Jack came and spoke, does anybody have anything that came up that they want to share as far as like some opportunity that came up this week, or just something relevant from last week? I mean, I've gotten a couple of things about feedback, but I don't want to throw out any of them without permission. So, anybody have anything from last week? Any shocking revelations, paradigm shifts?
Yeah, it was a paradigm shift.
Okay.
And I've never thought about time before.
Okay. What aspect of it?
The part where he's talking about you don't have to give 10%, you can give more, or it's up to you.
All of a sudden that the cookie cutter got taken away.
Yeah.
It's like, darn it, now it's difficult.
Yeah. Now it's tougher. It's my decision.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay, well, we're boring. No. Okay. Well, think about it. If you come up with something as we're going that you want to share, let it speak out. So looking at this stuff, read these questions and answer in order without reading ahead, and according to your first gut response. These will not be collected, and you only have to share what you want to. So I'm not going to call out and say, hey, give something out like this, but we're actually going to go through these afterwards, because I want you to be able to, kind of self-analyze as we're going through, and then maybe you can go back and be like, oh yeah, this is where my mindset was, but this is where I see it now. Okay? So bottom line, when we start talking about mindset, the big thing here is that most of us see money as completely the wrong thing. We don't see it as what it really is. We put all of these values and these ideals on money itself, and then we can't figure out why the money is not coming, why we have troubles managing it, why we end up worshiping it, and everything else that goes into it, because we have the idea of it wrong right from the get-go. So that's kind of the first thing that we got to tackle is what's really going on in our head in regards to it. And then once we get that down, then we can start talking about how do you actually get out of debt. And then the last week we'll talk about how to and I hate even using the word invest, because that's almost the wrong word. We really need to kind of get away from that idea altogether. So what is money? Money is an object or record that is generally accepted as payment for goods and services and repayment of debts in a given country or socio-economic context. The main function of money are distinguished as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, a store of value, and occasionally a standard of deferred payment. Any kind of object or secure verifiable record that fulfills these functions can serve as money. Money originated as commodity money. What does that mean? Anybody throw that out? What does commodity mean? It means it's actually worth something. Mm-hmm. Okay? But nearly all contemporary money systems are based on fiat money. What is fiat money? Not worth anything, yes. Okay, so fiat money is without intrinsic value as a physical commodity and derives its value by being declared by a government to be legal tender. That is, it must be accepted as a form of payment within the boundaries of the country for all debts, public and private. So, looking at all that, what somebody shoot out, what do you get out of that? Like, what does that actually tell you as far as what is money?
It's just an exchange medium.
Okay, huge. Okay, that right there, I mean, hopefully I catch myself in this too. I mean, hopefully everybody is just kind of like instantly right there's that switch, because we look at and we're driven all the time to think about money as it's actually like I want it in my pocket because it's actually worth something. But that completely changes when you actually see it's just a unit of exchange. Okay, so a unit of exchange for what? What is a unit of exchange for?
Goods and services.
Goods and services. Okay, so think about that as we're moving through this, because and when you look at that, you see how it's changed over the course of time, and this is really important to see how this works if you're going to plan ahead for the future, because in terms of commodity money, the things that are actually worth something, then it's like, yes, you work hard, you get that money, that, let's say it's gold or silver, okay? And now you have that gold or silver in your pocket that doesn't lose. I mean, it's actually something. It's not a piece of paper. If you take that piece of paper and you go into the jungle in the Amazon and you try to barter with an American dollar bill, what are they going to do?
Laugh.
Yeah, they're going to laugh at it. They're going to, even they know it's not worth anything. But as far as if you walk into the jungle and you pull out a gold coin, they know what that is. It doesn't matter who you are, you know what that is. So now, of course, we don't have to get into all the reasons why it got changed over. If you don't know all that, that's like a whole nother topic. Why we got away from the gold standard and started using fiat money. That kind of goes into the whole banking system and all that. But here's the idea here, is that you've got to first understand money has no intrinsic value. The minute that you understand that money has no intrinsic value, all of a sudden you can stop working for money. Does that make sense? All of a sudden it's like what you do doesn't really wrap around the money itself, because you realize it doesn't have any intrinsic value in itself anyways. So why in the world do we spend our entire lives toiling just trying to see the number go up? I mean, it's like, honestly, how many times have you guys heard of the person, we're healthcare, how many times have you seen the person or heard the story where somebody is worth millions of dollars and then they get sick, and then what do? Think about Dr. Greg's story. I can't remember what the guy's name was. He's talked about him so many times. This guy, CEO of a major corporation. You guys would know who he is, or you would know the company name at least. He won't even say it because patient confidentiality. But this guy walks into his clinic and he says, "I've been diagnosed with cancer," and they said it's terminal. And so my doctors have only given me so long to live, and they basically have said they can't do anything. So I'm out there looking for anything and everything that I can do, and I've had multiple friends say, "You need to go and see Dr. Lohman. You need to see a Maximized Living doctor." So, so that's why I'm here, and I'm, right now I want to tell you, if you can fix me, this is yours. And he handed him a check that was written out for $1 million. Because all of a sudden it's like, I'm dying. The paper doesn't mean anything. Ooh, wow, I spent all those years looking at that number in the bank account going up, and all of a sudden in that flash, bam, it's gone. It doesn't matter anymore. And to end the story and finish it wisely, Dr. Greg handed the check back to him and he said, "The fee is $2,000 and you should have seen me 10 years ago." So what's the big idea there? The big idea there is, when you're not trying to work to try and build up paper, all of a sudden you get control over it, and now you have dominion over money. And that's what's important in terms of the Bible study component of it, is that now you have control over it. You're not working for it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, that's a huge idea there. And so that's one of the reasons why you see it so disturbing that we've gotten away from a gold standard, is because we used to work and we actually used to have something of value. But now people are slaving their lives away, doing ridiculous jobs, redundant jobs, getting paid minuscule amounts, and it's not even real money. It's not even anything that has a backing. If look at what happened with the stock market. Everybody's got, and that's for week 4. But look at all the money that people had in the stock market. Skip Moen, he's my mentor, one of my mentors. He had all of his money tied up in what's Enron, and he was worth millions of dollars. He had I think like 5 Ferraris in his garage, and I mean he had loads of money. And in one day when the towers got hit, he got what happened? No, I can't remember what. No. That's somebody else. That's somebody else. That's another guy that was going to come and talk. Another guy that was going to come and talk. He was worth millions of dollars. The towers got hit. His money gone just like that. All of his money was in Citibank, and it went, of course, from like $130 a share to like $2 a share. So you see what happens when it's paper. Now, if you have, let's say you have $200,000 in a bank account, or in an investment account with Scottrade, okay, and then you've got $200,000 in gold sitting in your garage, okay, and another 9/11 happens. Who has more money? Well, obviously, the one that actually has something worth value, okay. So that's huge to understand, because it's almost like, I got my big belt on, because that your number is big in your account, and it's like, it's just not that important. Okay, so commodities versus paper. Obviously, commodities are always going to be worth more. So what are commodities? Give some examples of commodities. Oil, coal, corn, real estate, houses, buildings. Stuff that people actually use, things that people actually need. Okay, so moral of the story, be thinking in the long run of how you can have commodities. Here's a reality of how people get wealthy, really wealthy. They control a lot, but they own nothing. Does that make sense? It's basically they leverage everything to where they control tons of stuff, where they have liquidity everywhere, but on the books they don't own anything. Which means when you get sued, what happens? Nothing. You don't own anything. Okay, so that's creative engineering there, but you can do
Very
it.
dishonest.
Huh?
And very dishonest also.
Very dishonest? How come?
Because what you're doing is you're hiding your assets. That's what you're basically doing when you hide behind an LLC or you hide behind any type of corporation. Because they could sue the corporation, get boot cut basically,
Right.
and you're still sitting on your assets.
Right.
And that's dishonest.
You think having an LLC is dishonest?
No, I have an LLC.
But how
It's
is
what
it?
you have to do. It's because of the fact that so many people do sue. If you don't.
Well, and that's the thing. So it's so the question really comes down to the individual situation, not the overall gambit
That's
of things.
exactly right.
You know what I mean? In some cases, yeah, people are going to be ripping people off and then hiding their assets where they, let's say the example of a doctor that is a traveling lobotomist. And he's traveling the country in his lobotomobile doing lobotomies on people. Okay, that was actually true. Yeah, that was actually true. There was a guy that traveled the country in the lobotomobile. He did over 300,000 lobotomies in about 2 decades. So he was worth. And who's seen Sucker Punch? You guys got to see Sucker Punch. Oh my goodness, it was incredible. So. If you don't know what lobotomy is, what they do is they basically take your eyelid open like this. They take an ice pick into the back of your orbit, hammer it through the back of your orbit, and then swizzle up in your brain. Okay, that's the lobotomy. So somebody like that, yes, and then they go and hide their assets from the families that are suing. Yeah, I absolutely agree. But then again, if you're doing something honest, and then somebody sues you dishonestly just because they know your money. They know you have money. Remember, I was telling you this the other day. It's called Willie Sutton's Law. You know Willie Sutton's Law. You know Willie Sutton's Law. You should. No? You remember it? What is it?
I can't quote it, but
Quiz you.
well, I know the idea.
Okay. So Willie Sutton's law is that whoever has the gold is the ones that are getting, taken. It's Willie Sutton was a famous bank robber, and what he'd do is he'd break out of prison, then he'd go and he'd rob another bank, and then he'd break out of prison, then he'd go and rob another bank. Well, finally they caught him and they asked him. They said, "Why do you keep on you get caught and you get out? Why wouldn't you just hide? Why do you go and rob another bank?" And he was like, "Well, that's where the money is."
Yeah.
So that's Willie Sutton's law. People are going to go after where the money is. So, I mean, if you're honest and you're doing an honest job, you see what I mean? So it can go either way.
But it's also legal, though. LLCs are legal, and
Yep.
the way you position assets is legal. So,
Yep.
I guess if you're looking at the authority thing, if you're not being dishonest,
Mm-hmm.
you're living by the laws. It's to me, it's
The reason you
fair.
have an LLC is to protect you from
Right.
people who are not honest. For
Right.
instance, in the business that I have, somebody can suddenly slip and fall. And you have a lot of that type of thing happening in Vegas where they actually plan their falls
Right, sure,
so
yeah.
that they can sue
Right.
on
Mhm.
Yeah,
casinos.
yeah.
We have the same situation. Anytime that there is money involved, when people perceive it as money, you have a problem. And the only way you can protect yourself is going behind basically a corporate veil.
Right.
We have the same thing.
And that's
Oh,
not-
my
Sure
neck.
you do.
How it's worse. It's the same thing anyway.
I read this website once.
I watched your video last week.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, again, it kind of goes back again to the Bible too, where they challenge Jesus on what he should do about, what should we do about taxation and all that, and it was like, well, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what's God's, plain and simple. It's like the laws of the laws, and that's the way it is. As long as we play within the laws, we're good. So, but be honest about it, obviously. Measure for transfer of value. Okay, this is the next big thing, because when you look at money and you start to see it as a transfer of value, all of a sudden you look at the majority of people, and I mean, this is so huge. The majority of people, what do? They go to work, they do their job, okay, and they complete their tasks, and then they say, well, I need a raise, or I need more money. And then you've got somebody that has the right idea about money, and what are they going to do? April, what are they going to do? I know you know this.
No pressure. I don't know what context you want in.
Well, what's your view of work?
Oh, well,
You
you
get a
don't
raise?
work, no. I mean,
She's not there
for,
for a paycheck.
right, I'm not there for a paycheck, I'm on a mission, but you don't work any harder when you make more money than when you make less money.
Yeah.
You put forth the same effort.
So the idea there, to finish her, you work your off no matter what. It's like, because when you when you understand that the money is just a transfer of value, you're not it's not all of a sudden the deserving complex goes away. Because it's like, well, I did my task, now and I've been there for X amount of time, so now I deserve a raise. And it's like, well, if you're doing the same task that you did now, but then you transfer forward a year and you're doing the same task at the same speed, then why should it be any different here than it should be here? Oh, inflation, right? Oh, inflation. And because Obama increased the minimum wage rate, it's like, but you see, that's the way that most people think. They think that because they were here, that it's this ever increasing scale, and it doesn't matter what's actually happening in the midterm. Where if you own a business, anybody that's ever owned a business knows, if you were doing this much work here, and all of a sudden you're complaining about doing as much work here, that's a quick way to get what? Excommunicated. Yeah, you're fired. It's called fired. It's like no, there should always be a constant, never-ending progression moving forward, because you're producing the value And then what happens is because you're producing the value, now the transfer comes full circle. And it may not happen right away. And when we get our minds around the idea of what paper is and what money is, all of a sudden that really comes into full fruit, because it's like, think about an entrepreneur, okay? Everybody's probably watched the Facebook movie. Yeah? Okay. You need to. It's really, I mean, it's good, because it's like, it's one of those classic examples of where, somebody has a vision and they know in their mind that what they're doing is gold. They know that it's there. But it's like, does he sit there and say, well, you know what, I could work on my computer tonight, but you know what, there's that party over there, and since nobody's paying me to sit here at the computer, since I'm not making anything sitting at the computer, I'm just going to go to the party. You know what I mean? No, an entrepreneur sees it as it doesn't matter, because what I'm doing is I'm creating the value, I'm building the value, and I know at the end of the day, the money is going to come with it. The paper, the transfer has to come by law. But see, the employee mindset is completely different. It's the other way around. It's like I'm going to do the work only if I actually get the transfer right now. That's the difference. And is it any surprise that entrepreneurs end up making the most money? Because they're the ones that are creating the value, not expecting the transfer. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, yes.
Just to reinforce, exactly what you're saying. I had coffee with a very high executive from Disney, and I was just asking about money and work and his view, and he said exactly that. He said, Jeff, you focus on the work, and the money will always follow. Mm-hmm. Like, don't get it twisted, and I mean, that dude makes well, so anyway, this is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and then let's take another mistake that people make too, from the entrepreneur side, from the business side, is let's say that. Well, I mean, let's take it from a chiropractic standpoint. Since we know it, let's say that our value isn't there yet in what we do, but we decide that next week we're going to increase our care plans from where they are now to $10,000. Okay, so next week it's going to be $10,000, but we have done nothing to increase that or to change that over. Okay, what do you think would probably happen? We would flop, because even in that mindset, it's like, no, my mindset is really on the transfer end of it. It's not on the value end of it. We're thinking too much about the transfer side. So what you do, how we take this, to where whatever you do in the future, here's the way you do it. You almost give it away. You don't want to give it away, not for free, but you make it to where the value is so far beyond what you're actually. Can I say what you said when we gave you your initial care plan? I love it. I mean, she shook me. She shook me totally, because my value, my idea of transfer was like here. And when we went through her care plan, when she first started, 6 months ago? Something like that? A year ago? Okay. I gave her a care plan, and she looks at me and she goes, is that it? Basically just like that. And I was like, wow. I mean, I thought about that for like 24 hours, I mean, that was big. It's because that's, see, the way it should be is that you're giving away so much value, that your value is so high that, you can't help but drag up the transfer with you. You want, and what happens? People are like, oh my goodness, that is way more value than what I actually had to pay. Guess who I'm going back to?
I actually wondered how you were going to make
Yeah, I mean,
you're not going to make a living this way.
Yeah. It's just so wild the way 80 inch TV.
That's right.
So anyhow, getting back to that, it's when and you see this everywhere. Think about the examples of where you've had this happen. I mean, we just ordered stickers, decals. And when I get the decals and I see the quality of them and everything, I was like, I would never think I'd actually email the guy thanking him for the quality of their product, but I saw them and I'm like, wow, I got 1,000. I mean, these are like awesome and I only paid $400 for these. You got to be kidding me. So I called them, and guess who I'm going back to get big old decals on the back of my cars. Yeah, you know, it's so the value, set it high, and the transfer just goes along with it. Okay, so good example, the barter system. You know, just the way that works. I like the barter system, not because it's you know you're getting away from taxes. No, it's the thing I want you to think about the barter system is that literally because you remove the component of money, all of a sudden it becomes what it really is. It's a transfer of value. You know, if you come in and you put in hardwood floor in my house, and then I paint your house. You know, it's like, okay, well, my value is worth this and your value is worth this, and so we're going to literally just trade value, you know? So all of a sudden that's a good example of how it really works and how we need to get it here.
My dad was really good at that. He once traded my go-kart for some work on the house. I was like, where's my go-kart, Dad? He's like, I traded it for the construction.
For your room. Way to go, Dad.
Thanks. He traded
Yeah.
guns and diamonds and bullets and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, so how to attract money? You know, this should already kind of be answered by just going through all that stuff. But so here's how you attract money then. You create value in the marketplace. You don't look for a better paying job. Does that make sense? You know, it's like you don't look for a better opportunity somewhere else that, hey, I heard we could do the same thing, we could make the same cup of coffee, but I could go and work at Starbucks and get paid an extra $1 an hour. No, you take where you are and you make a better cup of coffee. You know what I mean? You constantly think about how you can create value in the marketplace. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can make the best product, okay? And you may disagree with some of these, but I'm sorry, Apple, Ferrari, Ruth's Chris, and South Alabama Chiropractic have the best darn quality out there. You know, these are the best products. You just can't touch. So, what I mean by that, if you have the best product, now automatically the value is attached to it, because it doesn't make any sense that I can buy an Apple, 47-inch Apple, for $2,500 versus a PC that takes 10 minutes to pull up PowerPoint for the same, for $1,000. I don't care. It's like the Apple is worth the extra money because it's so far superior of a product. Okay, so you can create the best product. Unfortunately, in this category, unless it's a new product, it's very hard to do. Unless it's new or it's a service-oriented issue. Because honestly, if any of you in here decided I'm going to start building cars, do you think you're ever going to top Ferrari?
Yeah.
He does. Okay, it's going to take a long time, right? I mean, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to be hard to do. Something that's established, that already has the systems and the modalities in place and is established over time, that's going to be hard to top. So it's hard to do best product unless, like I said, service can be done because services are always changing, and the people are getting older, so all you have to do is wait for the best to die, and then you can have it. Or kill them. Okay, you can have the best presentation. Okay, the options here, Starbucks, Nike, and Disney. Now with Starbucks, who in here thinks Starbucks is the best cup of coffee that you can buy?
Absolutely.
Besides Dr. Greg? Absolutely not, right? Right? I mean, I thought they were decent until jerk. Mike turned me on to Klatch Coffee in California, and now I have to order expensive coffee. But they don't make the best cup, but there is no doubt about it, they have the best presentation. I mean, it's unbelievable. The marketing and the way that they hold themselves out, it's unbelievable how good of a job they do with it. There's a reason they're at the top, Nike, do they make the best clothes?
No.
I mean, come on. No, the clothes are junk. The shoes are uncomfortable except for the Nike Freeze. But most of them are very uncomfortable. I mean, they don't, what do they have? They're the best at getting the celebrity endorsements.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, nobody can touch them on celebrity endorsements. So they have the best presentation. That's a presentation. Disney, does Disney have the best theme parks?
Pretty good, man.
They're
They're
pretty
the
good.
She said yes.
They were the first.
I was so disappointed when we went to Disney World. I was like, this is a scam. I mean, come on. You've been the top. Think about this. Seriously. Think about this. You've been the top dog for 60 years, and you still have puppets twisting on sticks.
Roy, it is a small world after all.
Disney was
Come on.
Yeah, he was.
And they're
But
not around anymore. Those people aren't running that anymore.
but come on. I mean, you could at least give them like arms and like
That's great.
animations and virtual reality or something. It goes from It's a Small World to
Teacups, man. The spinning teacups. I love that ride.
you walk out and you think you just did crack. Okay, so now so that's the best presentation. You can do the best presentation. Okay. Again, the good thing about that I like about service industry is you can do best presentation and you can do best product. That's one of those realms where you can actually do that. Okay. Now fads, this is like a whole nother category. Okay. Who in here bought Crocs? How did I know you were going to raise your hand?
I was like one of the first. What are you talking about? I love that stuff.
Okay. Who in here has
Or that's The Office, baby.
who in here has a magnetic bracelet or has bought one? Nobody? Oh my goodness.
My balance.
Yeah.
Only if you think it does.
Here, let me push you over and see if it works. Who in here brought Beanie Babies?
Okay, I did that.
There we go.
Okay, so seriously, now you fast forward to post fad. What happened? Would you go back and buy another pair of Crocs again?
Heck yeah.
Maybe.
I love them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I wore them this past weekend.
Would you? Yeah. When
I
you
still cut the grass.
I'm right there with them Crocs.
when you now, luckily though, see they at least adapted. They didn't just try to. I mean,
a lot of different styles.
yeah, it's kind of hard to adapt Beanie Babies. We now have the Beanie Baby fanny pack.
Another great fad that I missed.
I mean, you can't really change that. But we look at it post era. We look at it post the fad, and all of a sudden it's like we wouldn't buy that stuff again. Because all of a sudden it's not as good a product as it was during the fad.
How about if we
You know what I
didn't buy it
mean?
in the first place?
Huh?
How about if we didn't buy it in the first place?
Exactly. A lot of us don't buy the fads. But you can you see though, you can create a fad. Okay, now what's
in terms of iPods instead? You want to get really on top of really where people are making their mistakes.
but iPods are so functional.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, not really.
You know that you can't make an
You
investment
can make
in
phone calls on
electronics.
iPods now.
I can make a phone call with my landline. though.
Yeah, but I can
Oh, gosh.
I can make a phone call with my family and friends
I
on
can make a phone
iPod
call
or
with my
nothing.
city.
Now hang on, you're talking about an iPhone,
iPods too.
an iPod.
Yep, there's an app.
Skype it?
Wow.
There's an
So
app for
it's
that.
valuable.
See, here's the thing. That's not a fad if it's been in place for 10 years. They basically built a product
Yeah.
line
Yeah.
that created
Yeah.
an economy.
Yeah.
That's what they did.
I
Yeah.
call
It's
it
not
a
a fad.
hassle. I'd rather hire somebody to answer my cell phone. I really would. I
I'll
don't
do it.
want to deal with them.
Or you could just do like me, just don't answer.
There you go. Just don't answer.
Voicemail.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you. Sorry if you've ever got my voicemail. Okay, so you can create a fad. Now, what's the problem with that little thing there?
It's hard to define.
They die. They're short. Okay, but
Damon,
think about this
I
though.
love silly bands.
Okay,
At least a year ago.
how many people honestly do you think have ever said, you know what, I'm gonna create a fad,
Exactly.
and they do? Probably like.
You stumble on it.
Probably like zero. Jen's got him. She'll clean up the blood. If usually fads just happen because somebody, what do they call them? It's not a maven, is it?
No, it's not. It's not an influencer.
I don't remember what it is. But anyways, there's a certain category of people that they will create fads. But they create them in ways that usually you don't ever see them happening. You don't see them coming along. Somebody, sees something that their dad is working on in their shop and slaps it on the wrist, and now we have slap bracelets. It's stuff like that. You don't see it coming. So kind of hard to predict.
I think the rubber bands,
So-
like shaped rubber bands, that one just boggled me.
Yeah.
Silly bands. Danny
Ask
Wall.
David about
I
it.
bought those by the gross. I mean, I love that
Just
fad.
boggled me.
I bought it from you.
You bought it from little
You
monkey
sold me
shows.
my crack on silly bands.
Damon, I actually thought that you were just wearing them because you were a youth pastor, and you were just trying to fit in. Now that I know that you think they were cool,
You know what? I actually did stop wearing them about 6 months ago, but I wore them for the kids.
Okay, so now you look at all this. So basically, these are just a couple of examples here. Now, here's a big question to move into week 4. How does investing in the stock market fit into the above? Where do you think it fits?
That's probably.
Well, let's think
It's
about
the
this. It's-
fat area.
Well, presentation would have a lot to do with it.
Huh?
How they market their stock and their branding. So probably presentation. People buy stocks that they know.
Yeah.
Stocks that are in the public eye.
Here's why I wanted to ask this question, because it's like, okay, best product, they might have the best product. Okay, but how many times have you seen a company that has the best product yet their stock isn't worth anything?
Lots of times.
All the time. So in other words, how does a stock go up in price? Because it's a fad. Because it's a fad. Because all of a sudden everybody wants it. So it's like, oh, you have a piece of that paper? Here, I'm willing to give you more money than you paid for that piece of paper. Now I've got that piece of paper. And now, hey, because you see it's popular and you listen to Kramer, whatever his name is, then you want to buy the piece of paper from me, so I sell it to you. And at the end of the day, we all, usually end up messed up. So yeah, it's totally a fad, because you're going based on the fads, the overall fad conscious of the entire society. Basically, you're in a battle of the fads. Okay, so that's really important to understand there. So the second way how to attract money, you become irreplaceable. What does that mean? Lynchpin. Yeah. Okay, if you haven't read that book, read it, Lynchpin by Seth Godin. Read all of his books. Okay, becoming a linchpin. That literally means because you're irreplaceable, okay? April, are you a linchpin?
I hope so.
Come on, is there really a question, man? Seriously? No. I could be really setting myself up here. Yeah, that's it. It's like you make yourself irreplaceable. And when you become irreplaceable, let's think about a conversation that me and April might have, okay, and have had in the past, where let's say that you worked for me a year ago, or 2 years ago, right? Or is it longer than that?
4 months.
2 and 4 months. Okay, so 2 years ago, she knows that she's irreplaceable. Okay, I know that she's irreplaceable. So she comes to me and says, I really need a pay increase. And so my thought doesn't, because I know she's irreplaceable, my thought doesn't come down to, well, is the task that she's doing worth the value that I'm going to pay her? Right? That question doesn't come into mind when you're talking about a linchpin. The question that comes into mind is, can I afford it? Right? That's the question that comes into mind. So what happens is you can have an open negotiation with that person, because you know what their value is. That's no longer the determining factor. You know what I mean? The determining factor is, what can you do feasibly? Does that make sense? So that's big, because we all have that ability to leverage. Even as a doctor, we have that ability to leverage. If I go in and I say, Lynn, your care plan is $2,500, and you have the opposite response, and you say, oh my God, that's expensive, right? Then I might, if I don't have my values right, and I don't think I'm irreplaceable, if I think I'm the same, that you can get the same care for $1,500 down the street, then what happens?
You gotta understand.
You know, I'm like, okay, well, what do you have? You know,
What do you think of?
been there, right? Probably been there.
But that's where
Who hasn't been there?
that's
Okay.
where customer education really comes in. Though.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
So,
they think they're getting apples and apples and not.
right. And so then now when you know that you're irreplaceable, then that conversation comes up, and that person says, well, it's too expensive, and I say, no, you just can't afford it. Does that make sense? So, okay, that's big, but we all have the ability to leverage it like that. We all have that ability to become irreplaceable. Okay, uniqueness. A cog versus an artist. Okay, if your job is at McDonald's and you take the fry bin and you pour a basket of fries in there and you shake it like this, and then 2 minutes later you pull it out and you flip it like that, does it take art to do that? No.
That's a cog.
That's a cog. Okay? So if you're getting paid minimum wage and you say, I have to have $1 increase in my pay, does it make any sense, whether you're a nice guy or nice girl or whatever? Oh, I have coffee. Does it make any difference whatsoever that when you say, hey, I'm a nice girl and I work really hard, that the boss would go ahead and give you $1 raise? Makes no sense, because the boss knows that he could very easily just pull that cog out and put a brand new cog in there. And it's going to take another 6 months before that cog figures out that they could probably make more, and they ask for a raise, and then he pulls that one out and finds a new 16-year-old. Right? That's how these companies do so well, because they're just pulling out cogs and they're putting in new ones. It makes no sense to do anything else. So, why would you? Now, if that person has a position where they're a linchpin, let's say Jeff,
Works at McDonald's.
okay. Well, man,
Could you work at
I
McDonald's?
knew things that integrity were bad. Jeez. No, so Jeff works at Integrity. What do you do?
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing. Okay, so he does digital marketing. If he puts out the most spanking marketing that they've ever had, which you do, right?
Best sales
So
day ever.
if he does the best work, and his company knows that he's pulling in $20,000 a month, do you think they're gonna scoff when he asks for an extra $1 an hour raise? No way. So that's the difference between being a cog and an artist. So again, it's you creating value, you're becoming irreplaceable. You can only do that by being an artist. If you're so here's the moral of the story. If you're in a job where you're a cog, get out.
Unless you are a
Or
cog.
become an artist.
Yeah.
But could you become an artist like at McDonald's? Say you work there.
Sure, that's when you become the manager.
Really? But even the manager is such a cog. Like,
Yeah.
The good ones are not.
Here's
well, because at McDonald's,
yeah.
the mindset of it is a race to the bottom. And what I mean by that is a race to the cheapest price you can possibly get. And the whole company's not set up on, that's it. It's a price game. And the problem with the race to the bottom is that you might actually win. So that's kind of the...
There's two concepts that go hand in hand with that too. Is that if this company is so efficient that they can make cogs in flipping fries, do you think they're not going to be so efficient that they can't make cogs out of management? So what do? They have systems for everything.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that manager says, oh, I'm worth more money because I have the best store in the district. And they say, boop. And they just pull them out and they hire Will. And they say, hey, great, you got a marketing or a business degree? We'll hire you. $10 less an hour than what that guy was making.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And you see that trend happening with businesses. Even when I worked at Best Buy, I saw that and that always flipped me out. I'm in high school and I was actually thinking about that. Weird. But it was like I saw that when they would fire a manager, they wouldn't take the leads of the departments. They wouldn't take my supervisor. They wouldn't take him and move him up. They would hire somebody that's never worked at Best Buy before. And I saw this happen in 3.5 years that I worked there. I saw it happen time and time and time again. And I'm like, what is going on? I didn't understand as a cog, because I was just a cog. I didn't really understand, but now on the tail end, I totally see what's happening. It's just like, oh, well, simple. That was cheaper. They can do the same thing.
I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
think that's really the clear delineation between corporate America versus small business owned enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, like, for example, if you were in a family restaurant working and you became an artist at your trade, like you see on TV, diners, drive-ins, and dives, or whatever it is, these guys, they become that artist. Even though they are kind of a cog, but they become the artist, and then they become irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Even if
Because
they are making
they're designing the menu.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are
Versus-
designing the menu.
McDonald's.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. But there's a big thing there though too, and it's what you were talking about. See, that's a race to the bottom. The people that are doing that, they're not. They're racing to the top. They're the ones that have the high price tags at the restaurants.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Also, the
there's
customer experience is amazing.
Yes,
It's the way that it's all an art.
okay. So mindset. I think you guys kind of get the mindset between all that. Well, not really. I mean, hopefully you pretty much get this, but you got to see, you can be an artist and still think that you're not worth anything. You can still be worth, you can still be doing the work and doing the art and creating the value, but if you don't think you are, and you don't have your head up there, then all of a sudden you're not going to be there. There's talk about this all the time. I mean, this is like number one topic in Maximize Living is you guys don't really get what you're worth. You really don't understand. And I mean, it's true. We don't really understand. We don't get what we're worth, because reality is a orthopedic surgeon is over here and he's charging $65,000 to put a metal fusion in somebody's neck. So he spends, an hour and a half slicing their tissues open and screwing a metal plate into the back of their neck that's going to ruin their life and sewing them back up. Charges $65,000 for that, and yet we question charging $2,000 for an entire year of care that's going to get them off of drugs and keep them away from that guy. It's like, there's a moment.
It goes
Yeah.
beyond that too, Mike, because of the fact that they also have money for Medicare, you have money for Medicaid, and you have money through insurance,
Yeah.
which you are not getting. And
Yeah.
that's why they go that direction. It's where the money is.
And the interesting thing though is you see what's happening is that the medical model is turning into a cog-based model. Because people don't really so much anymore. They don't really go and search out the best doctor and all that. It's like they go and see their doctor that's on their insurance, whether he sucks or not. They're going to let him cut their neck open. Yet somebody that charges cash for like what we do, you have to be an artist. You can't be a cog. If you're a cog, you're dead. If you're a cog, you're up there in Montgomery tomorrow fighting to get drug access. We actually have to drive up to Montgomery tomorrow because there's people in our profession that have pushed through for a vote tomorrow for Alabama to be the first state to allow chiropractors to prescribe drugs.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of
So-
drugs?
Drugs, prescription drugs. Yeah. Yeah.
Inject them, swallow them.
But that doesn't really go along with the idea.
Is that what you want to do?
Why?
No. You kidding me? That'll destroy our profession.
It's not who we are. It's not what we do.
Wait, what chiropractic?
The whole point is.
Where are they at?
All over
What,
the state.
like minor-
There's just certain.
Minor procedures too?
Yeah, minor surgeries, stuff like that. So basically, here's what it comes down to. The minute that we start doing what they do, what stops them from doing what we do?
That's scary.
And all of a sudden, you've taken Bruce Chris and you turn him into Golden Corral. Yeah. Because now your local medical doctor can give you a Kraken,
Right.
So, so correct and responsible actions, that's kind of the bottom line is if you really want to create value, you do correct and responsible actions. There's a lot of people out there that are, worth a lot of money, but they don't do the correct and it almost seems like the ones that have the most money are the ones doing the most irresponsible things. But obviously this is a Bible study and that's not the way to go about it. That we can't go through all this stuff. about becoming the best product, and and you go and make the best crack cocaine or the best methamphetamine anybody's ever tasted. You can't do that. It's correcting responsible actions that are going to bring it lifelong. So it's self-producing, and you can start to build that legacy there. So does all that make sense? I mean, these are like the big areas where you start to attract it. Okay, so reality check. This is where we get into the questionnaire. The mirror doesn't lie. That's the bottom line. So you have what you have because you've earned it. So wherever you are right now, here's the big thing on the mindset. Wherever you are right now, whether you think it's good, whether you think it's bad, wherever it is, you've earned it. And that's come from right here. Okay? So there are certain things that have been set up over the course of time in the way that we see ourselves that has set us up exactly to where we are right now. And until that becomes accepted, then it can't really be saved. Make sense?
Say the last part again,
until it's become accepted, it can't be saved. In other words, what I mean by that, think about it in terms of marriage. Until you accept that you are responsible for ruining your marriage, you're not going to save it. Because what happens, you're constantly blaming it on outside issues. You're blaming it on outside factors. So you've got to come to the realization that wherever we are, we're there because it's me. So that's an empowering point to be, because now you can have the power to change it because now you understand it. Does that make sense? Okay. So 1.1 question. If you were gifted $1 million today, how would you feel? Okay. Anybody want to anybody want to extrapolate on that? What they put? Throw out a couple answers. We've got to at least get a couple.
Super excited.
Super excited?
Awesome.
Okay. Awesome.
Lucky.
Lucky.
Blessed.
Blessed. Okay.
Great.
Okay. In the back of your minds, did anybody in here, I mean, you don't have to say it, but I mean, honestly, would anybody feel uncomfortable with that? Because there was because the reality is there's a lot of people out there that would actually feel uncomfortable with that. They would be scared.
Yeah.
Why? That's the big thing to understand is why. Because if you're scared by it and you see that you're uncomfortable with the idea of getting that much money, then what kind of mentality does that lead you to in attracting it? You're probably scared of attracting it too, so you're not going to. Okay? So you've got to, and this is a big issue because, deep down, I think a lot of people have this problem because they think that if they accumulate too much, then it starts creating this separation between them and the people that they love. So what happens is, think about it this way. Let's say that Will and Nikki, you guys are both chiropractors, okay? And so now, Will, you start becoming like this master Jedi of everything chiropractic. You just, your skill just goes through the roof, okay? But Nikki, you know that you haven't really done that. Okay, do you think that's going to start causing a little bit of a rift? Absolutely. So it would take a lot of communication skill and emotional connection to not have that happen. So the idea there goes with money too. A lot of us have this deep-seated thing where we know if we accumulate too much, that all of a sudden this separation, this rift is going to start coming, and that becomes uncomfortable in the deepest parts of our mind. You may have grown up and I battled with this for a long time because I never had money growing up, and so it's like, I didn't see myself going there. It's like I saw myself going there on the surface. On the surface, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. But guess what my actual actions showed? That it wasn't there. Yeah, the actions weren't there to match it up. And that's the reality is, what are your actions actually telling you where your comfort level is? That's huge. If you start thinking, how would you spend it? Let's see, what would you do next week? Anybody on that one? What would you do next week?
I'd pay down my mortgage.
Okay. Probably a lot of us would do that. Yeah. What else? Anybody else?
Take 2 weeks off and take
Okay.
I said, pay off all debt, buy some Vibrams, set aside money for school.
Buy some Vibes. I'm gonna buy some Crocs
I'm gonna buy up the line.
with Beanie Babies tie wrapped to them.
Yes, and I said, put remaining money in an interest accruing account.
Okay. Anybody else?
I put invest.
Invest.
It's got to start making money. Like if I'm giving $100,000, it's got to start growing fast.
Okay.
That's kind of what I did. Buy a rental property.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
I found this, a year ago, I sort of changed my mindset, and I got to where I was like, well, whatever I could do with $100,000, I can do today with $1. So
Thank you.
when I started walking in that path, the only thing I said, I would continue what I'm doing, which is going to school and learning about engineering, but I would study starting a mid-sized engineering company on my own.
Okay.
That's the only change.
Huge, huge, huge. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where my mind was when I was writing that. When I put that question down, is if that's what you would do when you have $100,000, what are you doing with the smaller amounts, right? That's the story of that's the parable of what is it? The parable of talents. It's like well he gave this guy only one, but they gave this guy 10. Well, that guy automatically has an advantage, right? No, it's the same thing. It's what we're given and what we do with it. So we got to be thinking if our mind is on here's what I want you to see there. If your mind immediately went to spend, you see there's a problem there, no matter what it is. And not to call anybody out, but there's no difference between buying shoes and going on vacation. You know what I mean? Because both of those mindsets are immediately going to spend. Now there's a difference. I mean, if like let's say that you're already banking huge amounts, and it's like that 100,000 was just kind of like somebody handing you $100 check today, that might be okay, but we've got to look and see where did our mind go immediately on that, and that kind of tells you what the surface is, what's actually below the surface. That's what's driving your actions.
I wrote
Does that make sense?
Vibrams in later.
Okay. That's your reward.
Like a $100 pair of shoes out of $100,000.
That's very
Big spender.
Yeah.
Nobody go forward and read these. I wanted them to actually pop up, so I don't want to give anything away here. How much would you have 1 year from now if you did what you did? And we don't have to go through all that, but think about this. If, that goes back to that idea. If you look at that situation and you're like, wow, would I really have more than $100,000? I bet you 95% of people, they would not have $100,000 at the end of the year. They would not have it.
You'd have
It would.
78,000 after your tithe, like 22%.
Yeah. That's true.
There you go. He's the thinker.
Okay. So that's awesome. So the idea there again is if you look at yourself and you thought that I probably wouldn't have that $100,000 in reality if I wouldn't have that at the end of the year, then you see where your trend is. And your trend is what's really important when especially when you're younger, it's even more important. It's going to be a lot more important for you guys than it will be for Lynn, right? Because there's a huge difference there in span. Not huge. I don't mean it like that. But there's a big difference in terms of accruing interest and compounding interest. There's a huge difference there. So you should be thinking, that I would have more than that. Like, wow, if I had $100,000 and I was smart about it, I might be able to spend. I'd be thinking, well, how much could I spend, to do something, that I want to do, yet still come out with at least a 10-20% return at the end of the year. So you might spend 2,000 of that 100,000, but at the end of the year you're going to have 110,000. So it's like that's okay because the trend is going up. It's like what we talked about last week, the whole spiritual thing. It's like you may be here, spiritually, but if your trend is going down, then guess what's seen? The trend. Yet you got the guy hanging on the cross, hanging on something next to Jesus, and he looks at him and he says, I tell you, you will be with me today in the kingdom of heaven. And it's like, but that was a decision right there on the spot. But guess what was noticed? The trend. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. Okay. Number 2, are you in more or less debt than you were 1 year ago? And then why? Okay. This is one I won't ask anybody to answer. If you were to change where you go, what are the 2 options of getting there?
Should talk to Mike's house?
Huh?
Change where I'm going?
Well, if you're gonna change where you I'm confused. Well, if you have wherever you are, it doesn't matter where you are financially. Let's say you're right here, and you know where you want to go. You want to go up. You only have 2 options on how to go up. What are those 2 options? You either decrease your spending or you increase your income. That's it. Yeah, there's only 2 options. You can't fudge that. It's just 2 options. You have to leverage it. So you got to start looking at, well, if you were in more debt now than you were a year ago, then you have to make the decisions. Well, either I have to decrease my spending or I have to increase my income. One of the 2. And which one do you have more control over?
Your spending.
You have more control over your spending. In most cases, if you're and that's a good mindset. I like the mindset. I do like the mindset. For most people though, they don't have that mindset, so it's like you're either as an employee, you're grounded on what value your boss sees of you in order to give you more money, or if you're at the top and you're and you're Nikki or Lynn, who have your own business, then who are you relying on? You're semi-relying on the customers and the business that's coming in. If they're not coming in, you're not going to change anything. Okay, so you've got to look at those 2 situations. That's all you can change, but it doesn't matter where you are, you can always change that. So the mentality there is to live on less all the time. You should always, there's never an arrival moment. You look at The Millionaire Next Door, if anybody who's listened to that, okay, read it, listened to it, whatever, yeah.
I gave it to my son 10 years ago.
Yeah, so the number 1, the most popular car of a millionaire is a used F-150. Okay, not a Ferrari or a Jaguar, a BMW, or even a Mercedes, which you would guess it is. It's a used F-150. So, and it's usually what? I think they said 6 years old?
8.
A used 8 years old. Yeah. So that's incredible. When you think about that, that tells you the mentality is that they're always cutting their overhead and keeping it down. Okay, so 2B, if you could do it again, how would it be different? If you could do the whole last year over again, if right now you went back and you looked at all the stuff that you did last year, how would you do that year different? What would you do different as far as your spending and as far as business decisions or anything else that you've done? And then of course the question is really? Are you sure? Are you sure you would?
Yeah, no oil spills. I would definitely do
That's
that.
exactly
Yeah. That's that. Yeah. But see, for a lot of people, it really wouldn't change anything. If they went back and they got to do it all over again, if you knew, be real. If all of us knew today exactly how much money we were going to have in the bank at 70 years old, would that influence how you spend your money today? I bet you it would. In most of our cases, it would. Because we would be like, well, I know I'm going to have that much. So that means I can spend this much and get away with it. You know what I mean? But what keeps it growing is the uncertainty, even to the point where they build bunkers at DFW. Right? It's like that protection syndrome of, well, I have to do something to protect myself. I have to protect my assets somehow. Okay? All right, number 3. Do you have more or less saved invested than you had 1 year ago? And why? Okay, why? Now, you said more?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that's through an oil spill,
Uh-huh.
you know? Okay, so that's obviously a different mindset, you know, because most people that were in the oil spill, they have far less.
Well, they also think differently than us.
Exactly. You know, so that's good. Round of applause. So 3, was it in or out of your control that you have? Now, that's really important to see too, because some people might have just been given more money or gained a death benefit or something like that, and they actually have less. When you take out the calculated addition, they actually do have far less than they would have had. Make sense? So it's always that trend line that we're watching. 3B, that's on here. C, if you could do it again, how would it be different? There's a lot you can't change, but you can. Yeah, but what can you control? You know, what are the factors that you can control? What are the things that you can start to look at today to start to change all that over? Number 4, do you see yourself right now? This one's huge. Do you see yourself right now as you are reading this? Do you see yourself as, not as you were reading this, but as you were reading it the first time, do you see yourself as broke, okay, or wealthy? Okay? And, you know, with what's the common measure that most people tell you to think out there?
I don't know.
Most of the gurus and everything, they're out there. They'll tell you, I'm gonna tell myself 5 times in the mirror, I am wealthy. I am wealthy. I am wealthy. I like what Jim Rohn says. If you're broke, look in the mirror and say, dude, you are broke. because seriously, the reality is that if you look in the mirror and you tell yourself you're broke, that's called a reality check. And what drives people more, pleasure or pain? Pain.
Yes.
If you can put yourself in enough pain with the situation that you're in, you could be worth $1 million and say like, dude, you don't have no Lamborghinis. And all of a sudden you're ticked off and it's like you're worth $1 million, but now you're going to figure out how to go to 3 so that you can buy a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? Huge. So tell yourself what you really are. Don't lie to yourself. Your brain won't accept it anyways. I mean, that's so funny. It's all this neuro-linguistic programming stuff. You can tell. Listen, your thoughts speak louder than your words.
Yeah.
Your tongue may be a sword, but your thoughts are the hand that's holding the sword. They're the ones that are guiding the sword. So you may be telling yourself in the mirror that I'm wealthy, but if your thoughts are saying you're full of crap, then guess which voice is louder? Your brain hears the other one, and now you're just a liar to yourself, and your conscience doesn't do too well on that. Okay, how do you see yourself 1 year from now? Why? Hopefully it's going to be very different based on everything that we've covered just so far. And then 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now. Where you should go with this, okay, as you see it, so you are. That's absolutely true. You are going to be where you are, because if you really believe where you're going, that's where you're going to go, because that's where your actions are going to pull you to. But do you really want to leave your life up to just wishful thinking, and just hoping that it does better and hoping that everything goes in the right direction? But how does the Bible teaching about stewardship fit into that picture? That we're not supposed to be wishful thinkers. We're never called to be wishful thinkers and just say, well, I'm just going to bury them in the ground and hope that they multiply or hope that they keep their value. No, you get off your tail and you do something about it. It's never supposed to be wishful thinking. It's supposed to be work. It's supposed to be action. And it's no surprise that the word work in the original Hebrew is the same word for worship. They're the same things. Your work should be an act of worship all the time. So when you look at it like that, you should know where you are. You should know where you're going. And those expectations at 1 year shouldn't go times 5 when you go to 5 years. It should be more like times 10. And then when you actually get there, you figured out that you went times 20. Make sense? So what happens is you may think, well, if I really do well, I could be worth $500,000 one day. I don't care what your job is. I don't care what your job is. You can be, $500,000, like, you can do it. If you were just diligent, it don't matter where you are. You can just be, you can get there, no problem. So there, honestly, there's no excuse not to in America. even as bad as things are right now, there's no excuse. You know, so, but what happens if you have that mindset right and you do the right actions, you may think, well, I'm going to be worth 500,000, but you actually end up worth 16 million. You know, because why? The mindset. It's all the mindset. So you see how you can't even talk about investing in debt and all this stuff until you cover this stuff. I mean, it's like, this is what matters. Because if you get the mindset right, the other steps, they just follow in place. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think that's everything there. Questions? Any questions? Where are we? How long did that go?
With regard to what you said,
Yeah.
I really believe this. I am wealthy. Most of you know I am rich. And I think what really caused you to be rich is to love what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I
Artist.
mean that most sincerely. If you don't like what you're doing, you will never be rich. If all you're doing is chasing the almighty dollar, you will never be rich. You really never will be rich. But if you're doing something that you love, like Mike does, Mike is scaled to be rich in a very short period of time. Not just in money, but spiritually also. And that takes a real mindset of loving what you do. If you are doing something you hate, get out of it. I don't care how lucrative you think it is, because you're never going to die.
Here's a different aspect to it too. You know, is when you get to that point where it's like in my mind, it's not that I think I will be. It's I have to be. You know, you could be doing marketing and media. But if you get it so deep in your mind that you know you love what you do so much that it's like, no, you don't understand. I have to be, because that's the only way things are going to change and go in this direction. That's when all of a sudden you got power, you know? Anything else? Any other questions? Comments?
I put okay for that one because I'm a self-employed college student. And so the fact that my bills are paid every month is a complete miracle. And if I think about it, another aspect, I am wealthy because as Americans, we're wealthy, period. The person with the most poverty in America is wealthy compared to most other countries. Mm-hmm. So I'm wealthy in that aspect. But as far as the American standard, I'm okay because I can pay my bills. And I'm willing to accept that for now because I'm in school and I'm paying.
You're doing better than I was. I was broke.
Well, mine's just seriously a miracle every single month.
Yeah.
And as far as the 5-year, 10-year, 30-year, my answer is probably different than everybody else's because I can't say how much I'm going to have in 10 years. I can't say, oh, I want to have $1 million because how do I know I'm not going to be in Africa in a little village? And what good is a
But
goal like
there's
that?
more ways of having wealth than just the dollar. You have wealth in
No,
your
I'm
name
not
and
talking-
wealth in your,
I'm talking financially.
yes. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah. It's the value end of it. I mean, you could. Was Mother Teresa wealthy?
Oh, absolutely.
She had nothing, but you talk about the value that she was invaluable. I mean, just you could not pay her enough. Here's the measure of wealth. You could not pay me enough to do something different. You know, you could not pay Mother Teresa enough money to get her away from. That's when you're really invaluable. You know?
I think actually you get an even better example with Oprah Winfrey. I really think she's probably the finest example I can think of a human being now that gives so much and is so spiritually enriching. Just to watch her, you know, she just loves people, she loves what she's doing, and she is extremely rich, both spiritually and financially.
She's got game.
Really got it together.
Get back in the song.
Any other comments, revelations, paradigm shifts, or any of the above?
I feel like the reason why you might want to pursue wealth is because it gives you the ability to do more down here. It allows me to say, okay, today I want to buy this village a water pump because I can.
That's true.
I want to go over here and I want to be able to help these people because I can fly in a whole load of groceries and crops and plant their entire village for them.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at it. It's a
That's how I
major
look at it.
resource that allows you to get people to do things, and it allows you to get resources there to help people in need. And that's why I'm pursuing it.
There's probably a definition I've heard at some point in my past that said true wealth is being able to meet any given need at any given time.
That's good.
And like most of my life it's been, okay, I'll meet this need like if I have it, or, if it was tithing, or I mean just like whatever. It was like in the moment I had to make like a decision. And I'm trying to get to the point where you save to the point where your giving is intentional instead of spontaneous. It definitely can be, but I think there's real power in combining the saving and the intentionality of your giving, because then you're much more open to things that happen 6 months from now instead of 6 minutes from now.
Mm-hmm.
How can you help others if you haven't helped yourself at least enough so that you're standing on your own 2 feet first? It's like trying to give oxygen to a baby and you're knocked out in an airplane.
That's why they always say put yours on first. I can't breathe with you.
That's right.
That's right.
I love the analogies you come up with.
You come up with some good ones
Only
too,
an
bro.
engineer.
Drilling in your garage.
I was in a workshop.
What kind of workshop is that?
Okay, well, so here's the challenge for the week, because we, first and foremost, go back. Don't just throw these sheets away. Go back and read through them with a fine-tooth comb, and I want you to think about where your mentality was when you wrote that. Okay, because understand that tonight doesn't change the default. Does that make sense? Your default wrote that paper. Your default is just where you were in the spur of the moment, not after you've been intellectualized, So once if you go back and you read that and you see that your head was in that particular space, that's what you need to work on, So start picking that apart. Then the second thing is, we look back at what Jack was talking about and, and seeing that if we didn't have an example of where we put that in, and like Nikki, I know you did. Can I indulge on that? She called me and she said, Mike, this is, it was awesome. We went home last night and we cleared off our entire schedule for Saturday and moved, and spent the entire day just hanging out. And it's like, yes, there you go, because that's moving, that's doing something and taking a step. So if you do anything this week, take a step somehow on what we covered tonight, because if it's just information, it doesn't do any good. It doesn't change anything. You've got to find a way to put it into action, so that something was actually learned. You don't really learn anything unless you act on it. That was the end of part 2 on finance and money. In the next set, we're going to be talking about debt and how to get out of the negative before closing in on the last part, which is going to be building wealth and growing on the positive end. So this is end of part 2 of the 4-part series on money and finance.